Okay, so a parabola is a set of points equidistant from a line, and that line's called the directrix, and a point, then that point is called the focus. The focus always is always on the line of symmetry. The directrix is always perpendicular to the axis of symmetry. So focus is on the line, or what we would call the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to put that up here. Okay, so here we have a picture of a parabola, and of course the axis of symmetry. I don't have the x and y axis drawn on this, but I have the axis of symmetry, and that is what cuts the parabola in half. On the axis of symmetry, you'll see the focus point, and it is inside the parabola. Outside of the parabola, you'll have the line that's perpendicular to the axis of symmetry. That's the directrix. And the distance from this point to the focus and from this point to the directrix is always equal, the same distance. Anyway, defining P is important because it's going to help us find the location of the focus and the equation of the directrix. It's a little different for vertical parabolas and horizontal, but we'll take a look at that here in just a second. So we're vertex worked with H and K. Focus and directrix will work with P. And remember, Michael, we had that equation and you were trying to figure out what the value of P was. Well, now we're going to use that value. Okay, so we have to identify, excuse me, the focus and directrix for vertical and horizontal. It's going to be a little different. For our vertical, the focus point is going to be located at H, whatever K plus P would be. And then on the horizontal, meaning the parabolas that open right or left, where the y is squared, the focus point will be located at H plus P, comma, K. To find the equation of the directrix line, for vertical, we will use the equation y equals K minus P. And for the horizontal, we will use the equation x equals H minus P. This is going to help us determine how our graph opens. So the value of P not only helps us determine the focus and the directrix, but it also helps us determine which way our graph is going to open up, which is helpful, like a checkpoint to help us in our graphing. So if P is greater than 0, meaning it's positive, then our graph is going to, vertical graph will open up. If it's a horizontal graph, then it will open to the right. If P is less than 0, which would mean it's a negative value, then our graph, if the y is the value that's squared, will open down. If the x is the value that's squared, it will open down. If our y is squared, that means it's a horizontal parabola and it will open to the left. So P helps us find the focus and the directrix and tells us which way our graph will open up. Okay, there we go. So let's look at a couple of examples where we're going to identify some things. So first thing we're going to do here, these are all the things that we're going to do in a little different order than what you have them in your notes, but we're going to find the value of P. We're going to use that value to decide which way our graph opens up. Then we're going to determine the focus and the directrix. No graphing today. We're just going to be working with the P factor. All right, so for this equation, there's a couple things. First of all, I'm still going to identify my vertex because that's where H and K come from, the vertex. So over here, I'm just going to write, okay, my vertex is the point, that doesn't even look like a V. vertex is x coordinate first, so it'd be 6, and y coordinate 20. So there's my h. This is h. And, right? Is that for the vertex? Yep. And this is k. All right, so part A, I am trying to find the value of p. So in our standard equation, whatever's on the right side with the non-squared quantity is, we've labeled that 4p, correct? So I'm going to take 4p equals whatever is that value, which is a negative 36, and divide by 4, p equals a negative 9. So part A, p equals negative 9. Okay. How does the graph open? So it is, the x is squared, so we know it's vertical. And because it's negative, the graph will open down. So down, we can just put down. Up, down, right, or left is sufficient. Now we're trying to find the focus. And remember, the focus for is this, h, comma, k plus p. And our h value is 6. And k is 20. So we're going to take a negative 9 plus 20, which is 11. So the focus point is located at 611. And then to find the directrix, the directrix equation is y equals k minus p. And I'm just going to put vertical out here. And k is 20. So 20 minus a negative 9 would be 29. So y equals 29. So that is k is 20 minus a negative 9. That's how we get the 29. Any questions on that? So we identified the vertex, so we could identify h and k. And then found the value of p. So it's this whatever this is, equals 4p, and then divide by 4. It's a vertical line because the p was negative. It opens down. We found the focus by taking h, k plus p. The directrix by taking y, the equation y equals k minus p. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the first thing I want to note is probably that this is a horizontal because the y is being squared. So I'm just going to put horizontal out there. Well, maybe not. Here we go. Horizontal. And now I'm going to identify my vertex because that's going to give me h and k. So it would be negative 3 because I do the x first and then 6. So hk. Now I am finding the value for p. And I look at what's the quantity in front of my non-squared variable. So that's a negative 5. So I'm going to say 4p equals a negative 5. And to find p, then I divide by 4. So a negative 5/4. You can leave it like that. If you want to write it as a mixed fraction, it would be negative 1 1/4. Either way is fine. The only thing I would recommend is that if it's a reduce, you can reduce the fraction, then reduce it. This can't be reduced other than changing it to a mixed fraction. So either is correct. You can leave it as that. Now, we are looking at the horizontal column. So in order to find what we need to find, we're looking at this information right here. So the focus is going to be h plus p, k. The directrix will be this line. And have we identified which way it's opening yet? No, we haven't. If P is positive, it opens to the right. P is negative, so yes, I don't know who said that. It does open to the left. So that's our part B, correct? Part B is that opens left because the value of P is negative. The next thing we're trying to find would be the location of the focus point. And the focus point is H plus P, comma, K. So here's H, and we have to add a negative 5/4 to that, or a negative 1 1/4. So negative 3 plus a negative 1 1/4 would be a negative 4 1/4. I'm going to leave it as a mixed fraction. And then K is simply 6. And then part D, we are finding the equation of the directrix. So it's going to be x equals something. And that something is H minus P. So H from our vertex is a negative 3 minus P. P is a negative 5/4. So that's going to be adding a positive 5/4. So that's going to be negative 1 3/4. Full graph, vertical. So just because I want to, I'm going to put out to the side, it is vertical. So I want to identify the vertex of this graph. Gabe, what's the vertex?
-2. Oh wait, no, the vertex.
Yes.
That's 5, 5.
5, 5.
That's my bad.
That's all right. He's just a little bit ahead. So there's H and K. We can identify that. I always like to do that because it helps me in the future. So first thing we need to do is identify what the value of P is. So how do we do that? Logan, how do we do that?
Negative 8/4.
So we could start with the equation. We know that 4 times P is a negative 8. And so then to find P, we're going to take a negative 8 divided by 4, which is negative 2. So P equals negative 2. Now we're trying to decide if it opens right or left. So Cameron, how was our graph going to open? Or up or down? Down. It's a vertical, so it's either going to open up or down. And because it's negative, P is negative, it opens down. Good. Now we're trying to find the location of the focus. So remember, for a vertical, the focus is going to be HK plus P. So H equals K plus, no, H comma K plus P. So H is 5. What is K plus P?
That's 5 plus a negative 2, which is
3. There's our focus point. Our directrix is the equation y equals K minus P. And so we would have the equation K is 5 minus P, which would be a negative 2, or 7. Y equals 7, correct? Everybody agree? Okay. All right, so for your assignment, I'm going to give you 2 more problems that I want you to work out in your notes, and I will check those, okay, tomorrow. So let me add those 2. Okay, so for tomorrow, you're going to work D and E out in your notes. I'll come around and check to see that you have those completed, and then we'll go through them together, and then we'll move on to the next phase of Parabola Week.